Broadcasting straight to you from a large spaceship, currently flying over a United States Armored Division. I wonder if any of those tankers down there knows if the Earth spins or not. Let's pick up one and find out, shall we? Hello, everyone, and welcome to Strange World, where the truth is often stranger than fiction. I'm your host, Mark Sargent, the creator of Flat Earth Clues, which proposed that all of us are living inside a Truman Show enclosed structure thousands of miles wide. Check it out at enclosedworld.com or just Google Flat Earth Clues. If you can't find it, that's probably because you're taking into account the curvature of the Earth. That's one I'm probably going to keep using because I'm tired of making up new ones on the fly. I don't even write those down. Special thanks this week. First and foremost, number one with a bullet is going to be Booglez, Booglez, out of the UK, who took Flat Earth Clues and turned it into a book. And it's now on Amazon. You can go buy the Flat Earth Clues as a book, give it to friends, leave it in doctor's office, dentist's office, leave it anywhere where people might see it and you want their minds to be opened. Booglez, out of England, they just contacted me one day. I didn't even have to solicit. They just contacted me and said, you know what, we could turn this into a book. And the audio version apparently is going to be coming out in another week or two, so you can send that to people. A close second would be Brian Klein from Humanistory, who happened to be literally the first person to buy the book. He was very enthusiastic, and so he paid quite a bit in shipping to have it FedExed from England all the way over to San Diego, and he got it, literally the morning after it came out. He was very excited, and so now apparently he's going to ship it to me to have it autographed. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that so much. I do not know if I'm going to be famous because of the book. I'm glad though. I mean, it's a cool little read. So again, if anyone wants to buy it, just go to Amazon, type in Flat Earth Clues, you will see it. Also, thank you to Frode Loken out of Norway. He wrote a great Flat Earth song. As you know, I've got a Flat Earth music playlist on my channel. It's got 73 tracks already, which is way too many. But it's got a lot of stuff. So he wrote a death metal song. The title is called Jeranism, which is weird because Jaren is really only mentioned one time in the song. But I like the chorus. The chorus is called Nuke the Sky. So that's what when I made the thumbnail, I call it Frode Loken, Nuke the Sky. A great death metal song, I think. And last but not least, longtime listener and sometimes caller, Sebastian, and hopefully I get the last name right, Puno. Yeah, I'm not going to try to spell it. But thank you very much, Sebastian. He reaches out and he goes, hey, you know what? If you're on the show and you think of me, can you give me a shout out? It's like, yeah. Absolutely, I can, because I talked to this guy. If I talk to you and you happen to mention that to me in passing, I absolutely will do a shout out for you. So, Sebastian, thank you very much for talking to me. Hope you're enjoying the show, and thank you for being a supporter. Okay, so we seem to have been alternating here and there now between mailbag shows, and I know you guys love the mailbag shows because I get tons and tons of email. And the phone calls, I love them. Texting, remember, if you're going to text me, you might want to email me at the same time. Yes, I will read every text, but I'm not going to respond to text because I don't like text at all. I don't even like smartphones. I understand them. I totally get the concept behind them, but I just don't like them. I think I'm old school communications, phone lines, talking to people, which is why I've got a radio show. Normally we do mailbags, but every once in a while we do subject matter experts, and tonight is one of those nights. So let me rattle off real quick to you who we've talked to in the past over the last 6 months or so. We have talked to United States Navy missile instructor, United States Air Force navigator, United States Marine Corps sniper instructor, United States Navy submarine chief, United States Army artillery radar operator, an Australian intelligence officer, an American flight instructor, an industrial engineer specializing in valves and seals, a career surveyor of over 32 years, an international shipping expert, a corporate travel agent, and an air traffic controller. That's 12 so far. So our lucky 13 this evening is a United States Army master gunner, Brian. Brian, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
We're doing really well. I love subject matter shows, and you and I got a chance to talk a little bit before the show over the last few days, and we've got quite a bit of ground to cover. So, real quick, Well, not real quick. Take all the time you want. It's a 2-hour show. Which is how did you come across the whole flat Earth thing? When did you start getting into the videos? And I know, by the way, for anyone that's listening out there, a lot of people that come in, they're sold on the whole idea. Brian, however, has confessed to me that he is sort of on the fence when it comes to what the shape of the Earth is. So, which is good because I invite debate since nobody else would debate me, and so Brian's got some ideas though. So anyway. That was my preface to you. So getting into there, how did you when did you first run across flat Earth, and what was the journey that led you to the show that you're on now?
Well, let's see. I came across your flat Earth clues, researching some what was his name? A Dr. Dinosaur guy, David. Forgot his last name now.
That's okay.
Yeah, but somehow I got linked into your flat Earth clues and watched those. Yeah. Watched the full thing.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. I have to admit, it's a very interesting topic. What I liked about it is it got your mind thinking of, well, why is certain things on your clues? Like I said, I'm on the fence, or actually more looking over the fence, not exactly on the fence.
Got it.
But you brought up some great points on a lot of subjects that made me go, well, wait, no, that's not right.
Cool.
So,
cool. And again, we'll be going into a lot of those points in detail. Let's do this also. If you don't mind, because we didn't actually talk about this before the show. Do you mind kind of discussing your Army career so far without giving away too much?
Not at all.
How'd you get started? Right out of high school?
No, not quite. It was what early 90s.
Okay.
That I after the 80s, didn't have a job and everything else, and family to support, so joined the military. Okay. Tanks was available, so I took that, and I've been in them pretty much ever since, getting ready to retire and all. So,
go ahead.
I've been all across the world, different positions, from testing to working in higher staffs, to being out deployed several times, of course.
Sure.
On them.
Right on. Any major engagements that you can speak of?
No, just standard Iraq stuff.
Okay, so
since the invasion.
Everybody was in Iraq.
Yeah.
All right. But you didn't. Was Kuwait a little before you? Yes.
You talk about the original Desert Storm?
Yeah, the original Desert Storm.
Yeah, I missed it. Darn it.
It
ended too quick.
That reminds me, what was that line from Police Academy where Tackleberry, at the end, he's like crying on the top of the squad car. It's like, why is he crying? Yeah, there was gunplay and he missed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you missed Kuwait, but you got into Iraq and did the Iraq thing. One tour?
I've been deployed 5 times.
Wow. Was that, if you don't mind me asking, was that voluntary or was that stopgap?
Nope. I knew I was going to stay in the military. No, I mean, government or not, they got great benefits when you retire. So
you hung in for the duration, and now you're officially out?
Nope, not yet.
Not yet.
Soon.
Okay. Again, I don't want to pin you down. I'm not going to use your last name, and respect to your wife. So don't let anyone know exactly who you are, just in case you get brought in for a Section 8. Although if it hasn't happened to anybody else so far, I don't think it's going to happen to you.
No, it's not the military so much. It's just it's a interesting subject, and some of the family's not on board. So.
Oh, I gotcha. Do you think any of the family listen to the show? Probably.
They probably all will, of course.
Well, I will not. I would promise I will not make you look like a crazy person. And really, who am I to judge? I open with flat Earth, so and I've taken all the fun ridicule. Although, in all fairness, to people who have listened to the show so far, I've kind of been eccentric my entire life. So when my family found out about it, and granted, I wasn't married and had kids, but when my family found out about it, they weren't surprised. They were like, of course. Why wouldn't he be? Or the short of a spaceship coming down, landing, and me getting taken away, I don't think anything would surprise him entirely. So, okay. So you did 5 tours. Did Iraq? Would you consider yourself? I mean, Master, help me out here because I know quite some about the military. Master Gunner is a designation given to people that.
It's basically, as tankers go up, our goal is to achieve to be a master gunner. We go away to school for a couple months and learn all the intricacies of how to shoot the tank and how to maintain it, and all the subject matter expert on how to make it work, basically.
Got it. That's cool. And so you're about as intimate as anybody regarding all the systems inside the M1? Or is it, what was it called, the M1A1 now, or A2, or what?
We're on the M1A2 SEP.
Wow.
A system enhancement package.
Oh, cool. That's
lots of computers.
I remember when those, came out, years and years ago, and wow. I mean, everybody's kind of followed the model, that sleek, low profile design, fast, heavy hitting. It's a great tank. I mean, would you rate it, as far as the Americans versus anybody else out there? Do you think anybody's got a better rig, in your opinion?
No. It's the nice thing about the Abrams that we have is it's really designed for crew survivability.
Oh, cool.
Just in case anybody can get to it, but luckily with our service, honestly, it doesn't matter what vehicle we have. The way we train makes our country the best. Yeah. Seriously. So, but no, we got a great tank.
Well, fantastic. And I was about to say, you probably don't have that many. I mean, as far as I know, I've never heard any weakness stories where, tanks have been, our tanks have been extremely vulnerable in any capacity.
Yeah.
Right on.
No.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get right into it then. So now you know a little bit about Brian here, and hopefully no one will say he's a fake, he's a fraud. No, he's not a fraud. He did 5 tours, and if you have any detailed questions, by all means, you can throw it at me for the next show. Maybe I'll email them to him. We're not going to take calls during this, like any of the subject matter experts, because I don't want to throw anybody off track. But in the future, who knows? If we talk to Brian again, maybe he will answer questions. We'll see. But you had some insights. So you and I were talking, and you had some insights on the gyro system, firing solutions, the Coriolis effect. Can you kind of elaborate on when you were looking at the flat Earth thing, and how you contacted me? What kind of brought you to this whole thing?
Well, the couple of interviews I've heard you do, mm-hmm. and talks and debates and whatnot, one thing I can always remember, that one guy you were talking to that was talking about when he shoots his rifle to the east and it drops, and to the west it rises.
Yeah, that.
Which was, that. Yeah, I will say that, no.
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily doubt that he thinks that he has a rise and drop when he's going west. No. But I mean, I had a sniper instructor, contact me and said, "Look, I trained for 3 years in the Marine Corps." He goes, "The Coriolis effect does not take into, it's not even in the manual."
No. The so background on the tanks to show you how precise they can be. When what we do calculate for, mm-hmm. at least the computers and everything else, is things like barometric pressure, the ammunition temperature, the air temperature, crosswind, and any changes in those. And we demonstrate it, in schools and whatnot, of how 10-degree difference will make the round totally different change. Yeah. But I can shoot east, west, north, or south, and it never affects if all those settings are in.
Nice. I see. I didn't even. That's new to me. I didn't realize that. Now, barometric pressure doesn't necessarily surprise me, because that's like water pressure. If you've got especially because you're shooting distances, and you don't have to give away anything. But I mean, you're shooting 20, 30 miles roughly. I mean, if you're
no,
not for the long shots.
No, not for the long shots. I mean, we average, your probably tanks will shoot target engagements 2 kilometers, but we can shoot, around 4 kilometers or so accurately.
But
on the move.
Okay.
So that's where the gyros and all that come in, but we can go across terrain up and down and hit a target out there.
Got it. Now howitzers can shoot. The artillery guys, they're designed to do the lob shots, but tanks rarely do any lob shots of any consequence.
No, we don't do what's called indirect fire anymore. We're very direct. We like to see who we're,
got it.
shooting. But I will say
go ahead.
The rounds. So, and it's rare, but occasionally, somebody will mess up and shoot a round too high or something, or out of the range that we're supposed to. Mm-hmm. And one thing that we're taught to do is, well, we have to find out where that round went.
Ah, got it.
So we know all the calculations, given the angle and the temperature and the barometric pressure and all that, approximately where that round went. And they can go pretty far.
Got it.
Accidentally. But again, we don't count curvature of Earth to calculate where that round might have accidentally landed.
Good point. And yeah, let me address that here in a second. But because I want to clarify. So direct fire, that's target point to point. You looking at an enemy piece and engaging them, usually a fairly horizontal shot. Tanks used to be, which is why I brought it up. Used to be, they could park themselves, elevate the gun, and just start letting them fly. But you guys,
I think the M60 series was the last one to do that.
But that's it. Those tanks now, it's all about precision, and you guys don't, like you were saying, you don't take any random shots. It's all as accurate as possible. Kind of like a sniper.
Yeah, it's it's like a sniper. Once we shoot, well, they're going to know where we are. So,
good. Nice. All right. So when you guys are shooting, let's say 4 kilometers or 2 kilometers, whatever your average is, your gyro is involved in that shot, right?
Yeah. So we have a stabilization system. So as we're moving across terrain or anything else, as you're bouncing around, the gyros, when we activate them to activate the gun, keeps the gun on the target. So it keeps the gun wherever basically the gyro was pointed. To keep it steady, including left and right and everything else. So no matter what angle I'm traveling at, if I'm holding that gun, then gravity or not or anything else, that gun tube is going to stay exactly where it was last pointed.
Nice. And the perfect example of that is going over rises, up and down hills. No matter what, that gyro is going to keep it, because it's tied via the computers to the gun. It's going to keep that gun right on target as much as possible.
Yes. It will.
Wow, that's fantastic. And talk about a system that because you guys are bouncing around a lot. If you're in a moving combat situation, whether you're training or it's real, a tank is moving around a ton. In relation to that line of fire.
Oh yeah, it goes up and down quite a bit. It's quite a ride in there.
Yeah, that's amazing. So if the gyro, okay, so. In your case, you're spinning. If I'm not mistaken, again, correct me here because I don't know everything about everything. Mm-hmm. You have to spin the gyro up and down repeatedly when you're acquiring new targets, right?
Well, the way it works with stabilization, as soon as we basically, when I say activate, we grab the gun to point at a target, gyros automatically come. They're always running, but they link the gun to that position that it's at that moment.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it's always more. Well, as soon as you start the tank up, it's spun up like a plane.
Yes,
where it's spun up on the ground, and then but it acclimates to wherever you're pointing. So as soon as whatever it is, you pull the trigger. Not pull the trigger, but as soon as you start sighting, as soon as you take over the gun, it follows it.
Yes.
Wow.
Exactly.
That's awesome. And that system's been around for quite a while.
Yes, it has, and at least since the 60s. So
really? Now I did not know that. So, but back in the 60s, because some people were saying, because I've gotten some flack for this, where because they'll say, well, with planes it doesn't really count because it's all computers and they adjust for the curvature of the Earth and the computers mess with the gyro. I go, well, then what did the World War II planes use? Because they weren't using computers. So with the 60s tanks, I would imagine they didn't have much in the way of computer guidance, did they? Or was it just kind of a rough, kind of a makeshift thing back in the 60s and just kept getting better and better?
Yeah, it got better and better. But you got to think it's a pretty simple system. The gyro spinning when you say wherever at the current position when you activate the gun, it just says no matter what the gyro changes, keep it at that position with the gyro. So as you're bouncing up and down, it's just staying in that position.
Nice. And you get and you never, of course, when you're doing this, like anything, because the people that I've talked to, like the pilots, people say, well, all the pilots have to be in on this. Don't the pilots know, that there's something wrong with the whole curvature calculation and the whole Coriolis effect? And aren't they all in? And I go, why would they be in it? It's the last thing on their minds. Kind of like you when you were doing tours, firing off rounds. I'm sure it never ever occurred to you. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, I wonder how that gyro does work on the curvature, if it's curved Earth.
Yeah. Yeah, just never thought of it. Just one of those things that you do.
Yeah, and then if also I'm not mistaken, because the artillery guys, I'd like to chime in on this. We've got 5 minutes to the break, roughly, first break, which is there was something because people said I talked to 2 scientists recently. I don't know if you listened to the debate I had with Brian Dunning and that Mark. The guy that ended up going up to his hotel room and drinking himself to sleep, I think. One of them said, "Oh yeah, the Coriolis effect, completely affects ballistics. Anything that's launched or fired." And the other guy said, "No, it doesn't affect it at all." So you got 2 scientists with conflicting views. But my argument has always been, whether it's a sniper or a howitzer or a missile or a tank, that you would run into some really, really big problems calculation wise with the firing solution.
Yeah, and our tanks have all these great computers that does most of the calculations for us. But however, like any good backup system, we have a complete manual backup system that we use with basically a sighted scope next to the gun. And
just look through the glass.
Just look through the glass with the reticle just to give me the distance markers. And I use that all the time. The only thing we calculate for is if a moving target is delete it. So
nice. But so people they're listening out there, if you don't understand what we're talking about, the Coriolis effect, and that is that the Earth is spinning, and if the Earth is spinning, mainstream science will tell you that it affects projectiles, like cannon fire. There's people out there saying, "Oh yeah, it affects cannon fire." I'm going, well, there's a problem with that with the military, and again, I'm a big military history guy, and you can attest to this, and that is especially with tanks. I mean, artillery, for example, if you were going to engage a target, you would have to not only would you have to figure out how far away it was and what kind of round you were going to use, but then you have to figure out, okay, which way am I facing? Northwest, southeast, whatever you're facing. And then on top of that, you've also got to figure out, because remember, the spinning of the Earth is supposedly 1,000 miles at the equator, and then it ramps down all the way to 0 at the North Pole. So you've got to figure out where you are on the globe. You've got to figure all this stuff in. And to my knowledge, I've never heard of anyone calculating these extra things when they're firing.
No, I've never heard of it either.
And you've done 5 tours, and you've been, and not only you shoot tank rounds, but I'm sure you've had buddies in other branches. And let me ask you this: I'll throw you the question that kind of came out of the surveyor, because the surveyor said that not only did he never use the curvature of the Earth, but it was never even talked about. So in your case, the Coriolis effect, you never even heard about that being discussed in any firing solution, as far as you know?
Never.
Yeah. And if it was real, you know full well that's something you would have to take into account. I mean, maybe not the speed of the spinning of the Earth, depending on where you are, whether you're the Middle East versus the equator, but definitely the direction.
Well, the one thing that I always, and your clues brought me on to this, is one of your questions about the airplanes moving east and west, California, New York, and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my round, like when the sniper was talking about, the round going and the Earth turning, well, if that was the case, then I'm pretty sure that would be the same for airplanes, which it isn't. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I mean, my rounds travel with the Earth or whatever, but like airplanes, so there is no effect.
Yeah, and mainstream science still won't say, sometimes they'll, like the argument, well, planes don't travel fast enough. I'm going, really, what's the escape velocity to escape the curvature, the spinning of the Earth? What's that supposed to be? Because the plane is really just a slow moving bullet. That's all it is. I mean, it's still a projectile. It's flying at 500, 600 miles an hour. That's still pretty fast. I mean, yeah, it's not a rifle round or a howitzer or whatever you guys are using. What you guys are like a 105 millimeter or something? Am I wrong?
120.
120. Wow, it's big. So the argument there, what he's talking about, guys, is if a plane is trying to land on a runway, and this plane is moving at hundreds of miles an hour, shouldn't the runway be moving either towards them, in addition to closing the distance, it should be moving either with or against the spin of the Earth. And is the plane doing just east-west runways? Because if you're doing north-south runways, then you get a whole new set of problems.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, one reason why I wanted to come on the show and all that is just some of the things that people are talking about between the flat earthers and the global people. And like I said, I'm probably more towards the globe, don't get me wrong, but some of the arguments just seem...
Ooh, welcome back to Strange World. I'm your host, Mark Sargent. With us tonight is subject matter expert, United States Army Master Gunner Brian. Still with us, Brian?
Yes, I am.
Cool. So, before the show, we talked about the GPS system, which stands for Global Positioning System. Many of you rookies out there have never heard of it. But if you're in Flat Earth, you probably have at this point. And you had a couple takes on it, on what's going on.
Yeah, so one of the things, and you talked about and all that, is the planes disappearing off over the ocean and all that, and everybody keeps asking why we're not tracking them. Uh-huh. So... to settle that halfway.
I know where you're going, but go ahead.
Yeah. So GPS satellites, the way they work, I'll say theoretically work for you, is they transmit a signal and your receivers receive the signal and tells you where you are. However, they don't transmit up to the satellites. So, for example, airplanes flying across the ocean, they can know where they are, but they're not going to transmit it back up to without a modem or a satellite phone. Sure. Once you lose the towers, they have no signal. Okay. Same concept of, I know you don't like smartphones, but if you take your smartphone, all those people that track the GPS, you go out in the middle of nowhere, Kansas or somewhere, where you don't have cell towers, your phone can still tell you where you are, but nobody else knows where you are because you have no way to transmit that data out.
Gotcha. So when you were first listening to this, and you've seen some of the arguments that have been floating around in the flat Earth, it did not surprise you necessarily that any planes that are heading out towards over the ocean, once they lose land radar contact, they're dropped. With it, that they don't, their latitude and longitude don't exist, at least from our standpoint. But what you're saying is the planes actually know where they are. They can see themselves, but we can't see them.
Right.
Okay.
Anybody who's traveled across the ocean, they always get that little map of the plane flying across the ocean to tell you where you are. Yeah. But as far as what we see, with all the internet sites to track planes and all that, that data is probably not being transmitted back out unless they put a satellite modem in there to talk to a satellite to transmit that data.
Okay. And again, I like the thought, and I like the debate where we're going with this. And I've talked to a few other people that have suggested, not as eloquently as you did, where you're saying, look, this is theoretically this is how it's supposed to work. However, there are some interesting things that are kind of left out, things that should be there from a global positioning standpoint. You and I talked about it. One was, like you said, if the plane, so we can't see the planes, but the planes apparently know where they are. All they need to do is install some sort of satellite modem. We're not talking about a big piece of equipment necessarily to do it, and not even that expensive, not for an airline. And you'd think that the airlines would want some sort, especially after that the Malaysia stuff that happened. Or with anything, if you had, like, for example, let's say you were a pilot that was out there, and you can relate this to a tank thing in a second, but if you were a pilot that was out there, wouldn't you want to know, you'd want to know where you are, but wouldn't you want other people to know where you are? So, like, you're saying that, like, even the planes, like, if there's a plane close by to them, and you guys are outside of the air traffic control thing, that you guys could see each other visually, but that's all you could see. The plane's got radar and all that, but technically you can't see on GPS where he is, and he can't see where you are, but each of you know where each other is. So, and you guys had this in your tanks.
We can, the Army's good at tracking the battlefield nowadays, and we know where everybody is via GPS that we receive, but we also have transmitters to transmit that data out.
Yeah. So yeah, and which is of course what you would want, because you'd want to know where all your 100 tanks are, and and the tanks would also want to know where they were. It makes perfect sense. So if you guys had them, and I know, the DoD, spends money on its own. I know that. But let me take it another way. Wouldn't the Department of Defense, who built the GPS system, apparently, with its 36 satellites and all this other fun stuff, wouldn't it be beneficial to them? Wouldn't it behoove them to also, because remember, in a crisis situation, civilian airlines like trains are considered assets, military assets, for troop transport. So wouldn't they kind of want these planes to be tracked as well?
Well, I mean, let's be honest. The government's probably tracking most of them with systems.
There you go. Yeah.
But can the airlines put something in there? Sure. No. Of course they can. We have the technology to do that.
Yeah. You'd think they'd want to, for insurance purposes. Think of the big insurance carriers.
I did read somewhere the other day, actually, supposedly by 2018, some airline's going to start doing that.
I've read this as well, yeah.
Feed you the bone for the flat earthers. So what I always thought was funny was all the internationals and all the airlines that are offering Wi-Fi now.
Yeah.
As you fly across.
Yeah.
Well, they must be transmitting to send a signal.
Yeah, to something, and either where are they picking up that signal from?
No, why they don't do it, I can't tell you.
Yeah.
But I do know the technology does exist to track them.
Yeah.
It's not hard to do. I know most of those flight tracker programs and all that, they pull from the actual airports. So
yeah.
I don't think there's a central hub for the internet release to see the planes and all that. I don't know about the flight paths and all that. I mean, those are one of your points. I go, okay, that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
But like I said, a lot of people I've heard debating on this whole disappearing over the ocean.
Yeah.
It makes sense with the way they describe the technology.
Yeah.
I have to, but why they don't add it, I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's why they always, when a plane crashes, they always search for that black box.
So they can figure out what went wrong.
And they always tell you that's where all the data is recorded of where they were flying and everything else, because that does record their GPS signals.
And which also led to something, and you and I talked about this briefly before off air, which was, if the planes, for example, let's say, we'll go with your theory for a second, and that is the planes know where they are. So when we see the plane drop off and the latitude and longitude go into approximated mode or estimated mode, and they disappear, the planes actually still are tracking their latitude and longitude coordinates. Apparently, maybe this is the theory. So when they land, we're not talking about a ton of data here. I think they updated whatever, even if it was every 15 seconds, it wouldn't be that a ton of data. How hard would it be to upload it after the fact? As soon as you park here, or even as you're taxiing, it's like, oh yeah, push one button and you're downloading your data, or you don't have to push anything. It could be, the pilots don't have to do anything. They just automatically download it, because when we look at the data after, we know they're not doing it because the latitude and longitude coordinates are still gone after they touch down. And that part kind of bugged me too. So yeah, I get what you're saying. You explaining the GPS system and how it relates to, it was interesting to me that the tanks had it, but if the tanks have it, and we're not talking, that's military and it's very mission critical. But if we're talking about a lot of civilian people out there, which is why in one of the clues I said, look, write to your congressman, tell them the flights aren't being tracked, why that system wasn't in there. And the insurance companies, I still think this is a big one, because insurance companies don't take chances with anything. If people forget, which is why the intro clip for this video was the Flintstones. I don't know if you saw that, if you've ever seen it before. Remember the last show where I included doctors endorsing cigarettes on television?
Yes.
Okay. You know what I did for this one? And people who are listening live, you don't see it, of course. For this one, I actually put the Flintstones. Did you know that the Flintstones were running? They were actually endorsing cigarettes?
Of course.
I didn't know that.
Well, it's like Popeye, right? He smoked.
That's Popeye smoke. Well, no. But it was one of the where Fred Flintstone walks into a tobacco shop and orders Winston a pack of Winston cigarettes. And it's not even a cartoon pack. It's like a photographed pack where they hands him, like the early, clip art. And so where was I going with this? Why was I talking about the Flintstones and the cigarettes? Mission Critical, the planes. I've completely lost my train of thought at this point. But the point is that Congress makes decisions. This is not the insurance companies. Okay, that was it. That was that when. Wow, it took me a while. The insurance companies were the ones that went after the tobacco industry. It wasn't like it was like a consumer awareness group that said, "Oh, you're killing people." No, it was the insurance companies were losing tons and tons of money because you had all these people going into hospitals dying of lung-related illnesses, and the insurance companies were the ones that prompted the whole anti-cigarette movement. So, coming back to this, wouldn't the insurance companies have some sort of say where it's like, "What do you mean the planes aren't being tracked?" What do you mean, nothing? I mean, there's a lot of planes that fly over oceans. You're saying nothing gets tracked? And they come back and, again, your argument would be, well, yeah, but the planes know where they are. I was like, yeah, I'm sure the Malaysia flight knew just before it went down. But what's that? How does that help anybody? In fact, they never did find the Malaysia black box, if I'm not mistaken. Or if it ever actually went down.
Nah, I wasn't tracking that. Yeah, they might have, not have. Like I said, maybe that I will give the other side a slant. They might be tracking them, just not broadcasting on the internet for everybody to see. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, I know what you mean. But okay, let me go a different route with you because I know that you are still. Would you, as of today, and I don't mind if you are. It's not going to hurt my feelings. I talk with people all the day. Would you still consider yourself a globalist?
Yes,
right.
I would.
All right.
I would.
Not just because your family's listening.
Well, no, not because that actually, most of them are on flat Earth completely. Once they've watched your clues, they actually jumped quicker than I did.
Oh, okay.
But I will give you this.
Is your wife flat Earth?
Yeah, she is.
Well, why are we not talking? It's like, why isn't she on the call with us? Anyway, go ahead.
But I will give you flat Earth this. Okay, now even with the GPS system and all that, that doesn't prove a globe.
No, it doesn't.
So I will give you that. Even system work and all that doesn't prove a globe or a flat. It can go either way with that.
Would you agree with me? That and you probably heard the Brian Mullen interview where he said from a scientist standpoint, he goes, science is kind of in a bind because he said there's nothing you can do on the ground to prove it one way or the other, actually.
Well, I will say this. The one thing that keeps me, and I've talked to you briefly about it, that keeps me on the globe side is the stars, north and south hemisphere spinning.
Huh. Yeah, not a bad one.
That primarily will always, because it's a visual site, and granted, most of them are YouTube videos because I haven't traveled that far south yet. Yeah. But thinking about it now, I've heard your explanations of projections and whatnot, but still, that is a primary reason for myself, staying on the globe side is the stars spinning.
I got it. I know, and that's fine. I've seen, I have disagreements. The flat Earth movement, as you know, is a little divided when it comes to things because everyone wants to nail down the magic tricks. Everyone wants to nail down what's actually happening out there.
And I think that's probably the best part, and that why I like the flat Earth stuff is because it makes people do the research and get the questions. Now, what I don't like, which has been happening lately, I'll admit, is a lot of people, like with that first group that you debated, that are just like, well, of course it is, you dummy. Why else wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
I am a fact person, and I do like to hear the facts, either side, either way, Did
I ever read you that George Orwell quote?
Yes, I've heard you do that.
Yeah. And again, I thought that was very relevant because when he said that people would get angry and say, yeah, like you said, the we all know the earth is round, duh. But the thing was he was making that statement back in 1946 when there was no NASA. Not even close. We didn't even have jet aircraft in 1946. Yeah. So how did everybody know it was a globe when the only thing anybody had seen was a model in their classroom.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that.
Yep.
It's a great point. And one thing that I've been disappointed with your hero Neil is
Neil.
well, no,
Neil
I
deGrasse
grew up.
Tyson. Yeah, that's good.
I'm kind of old, but I grew up and I watched Carl Sagan, loved it. Cosmos and all that. Got my mind working. And what I don't like is some of these scientists and all that when they go, "Well, of course it is. I don't need to debate it."
Yeah.
Which doesn't make sense because the purpose of their education and going out in public and all that is to teach why, not just it is. It's like my kids when they go, "Why is the sky blue?"
Yeah.
I could say it just is, or well, let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Neil, which is what we should be doing.
You're absolutely right. When Neil came out, I'm not going to use his full name anymore. Everybody knows who he is. When Neil came out and he made that statement, and he's done it more than once, where he came on stage and said, "Look, science. What I love about science is right, whether you believe in it or not." The arrogance of that statement just gets me going because science is always right. I've got a whole monologue I could do on when.
Oh yeah, I mean, I track the science stuff. I mean, like I said, I like it. I grew up, with the space stuff and loved the shows, Battlestar and Star Wars and everything.
Yeah.
But you just look at science now. I mean, how many theories we have on the universe? String theory, and then whatever else. They got 4 or 5. And that's the trick I've always thought is listening to when the people talk. Are they saying this is a fact or is this the theory? Like gravity. I mean, you can look gravity up in Google, and the funny thing is, it's still a theory.
Yeah.
It's not a fact. It's a theory.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're absolutely right. Because gravity is a nice idea and concept, but there's nothing we can do, at least down here, to test it like a sphere that's sitting in the middle of nowhere. If we had a bunch of, unlimited spaceships, if there was space, if you could go out and do it, yeah, you could probably figure out what gravity was doing. But you made some massive assumptions a long, long time ago, much like the globe or the one I love to pull out on people is the what's underneath us. Because people say, well, what's underneath? If it's flat, what's underneath us? I go, what's underneath us now? We've only dug 8 miles. And the reason is, and I said this on Patricia's thing yesterday, is that science does not like question marks. They don't like open-ended questions. So when they've only drilled down 8 miles, but they say, oh yeah, it's 4,000 miles of the core. And I go, yeah, but you've only drilled down barely a fraction of a percentage to that core. But yet you see, here's the red band, the yellow band, the orange band, the white milky center. And it's like, so why are you showing that to everybody and saying, oh yeah, that's it? And it's because they have a real hard time with handing a diagram of the Earth to children with a big question mark in the center of it. That because people people are just going to keep asking questions, and science gets tired of answering. So they just say, okay, you know what? This is what we think it is, and after a while, what we think it is becomes this is what it is.
And that's the biggest problem is that I think is so when science everybody picks up the fact that well this is what we say it is and it's a fact. Yeah. If it's still a theory, how many people that might want to do that research to figure it out?
Yeah.
Well, I don't need to because they've already figured it out.
Yeah.
When it's still a theory.
Yeah, you're right. They're dissuading people. I mean, not to say that they are a lot like religion, but there are some similarities there. Once they became established, say, well, no, science is the absolute opposite of religion. I'm going, yeah, but the way they wield power is very similar. They make some judgment calls and they invite ridicule to anybody that goes against them.
Which is, I mean, I was lucky, I guess, growing up, but I was always taught question everything, ask why.
Yeah.
That way you learn the answers.
Why not? Yeah, why not question everything? Because again, unless you know, and you've heard some of my rants before, and that is, look, there's a lot of things we know. We've all, we know that fire burns, water is wet. You drop something on the floor, yeah, fine. You can put a name to it, gravity, but rose by any other name. I mean, you can call it anything you want. But when it comes to the world, it's been such a fascinating journey for me, even though it's only been, the clues are barely a year old. Watching people say, "Oh yeah, it's the Earth is round," like we all know gravity.
One of the I thought was funny is one of the flat Earth arguments, or that I've heard several times, is no gravity, it's all density.
Yeah.
But here's a problem. No, here's a problem with that, though. Yeah. And I can say, okay, if it's density, but why would something heavier go down? That's gravity pulling down on density. Okay. But people cut it off. There's no gravity, it's density. Well, wait, no, that doesn't make sense, because if you have something heavier going down because of the density, it's something's pulling it down. That would be, quote, gravity. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's a theory, but people cut it off. They don't continue the thought. They don't continue the, Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and we're talking about density of mass, and then of course there's you're not talking about the buoyancy argument.
No,
the buoyancy argument is completely different, and or the velocity argument, which is that we're actually on something that's traveling upwards at whatever it is 9 meters per second or 9 whatever it is per second, and that it's actually a downward g-force, but. I mean, density, you could be that, but again, mainstream science, look it up if you guys had a chance. I know people hate math, which is why I didn't include them in the clues, but look up mainstream science, how they describe gravity. They don't even really know. It's just like you said, it's a theory. They've got some ideas about how it works. Yeah, it could be the density of the object in question. So far, if it was a sphere and the core was made out of a super dense material, does that make the gravity stronger? Some of my pet peeves are that they're describing. Not only did they describe the density of Earth, but they'll do the rest of the planets as well. It's fine. It's like fine. You use seismic radar to determine this planet. What the heck did you do on Neptune? You didn't even land anything on Neptune. What are you doing there?
Well, the one thing, I know we're probably getting close to your break, but I'll put in real quick.
Oh no, we got time. We got 3 minutes.
Okay. On gravity I love the experiment that my smaller kids learned recently. You take two spheres. I know you hate that word, but say a bowling ball and a tennis ball.
Yeah.
Drop them from a height, and they travel at the same speed. They'll hit the ground at the same time. Have you seen that experiment?
I have.
Yeah. But from what I learned about gravity, then they should be pulling on the heavier object. And these are the questions that always come up. Yeah. Why would they land at the same time if gravity supposedly pulls on the heavier object?
There you go.
And I'm not a scientist, don't get me wrong, but these are the questions that people should be looking at.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. People. Again, what has been fun for me, and literally, it's every week is something new. And I know some people said, no, don't use the word hive mind. And it's like, look, if you got a better word than hive mind, let me know, because the internet, the detection ability of the internet as a whole is so good at finding all the fun little things. I mean, we're digging through archives now. I mean, and what's really fun is, NASA, of course, has been under the microscope for a while now, and people are just literally going frame by frame, and we're finding stuff now literally on a daily basis, which is just fantastic to what. Did you? And you probably you caught that video I sent you earlier before the show.
Yes,
and that was today.
that was.
Even though that was 3 weeks ago, and I'm sorry, I'm leaving the listeners out of this, which was, if you guys want to look it up, because it was released on the NASA website. Was it Herbert Walker? What's the older one? George Herbert Walker Bush?
Yes.
Herbert Walker Bush, the father Bush, the one that was in charge of the CIA for a while, the smart one, basically. He goes and visits one of the NASA control center things. I don't know which one it was, if it was JPL or Florida, or I don't know which one it was, but he was there, and he was in a wheelchair. He's getting up there in age, so he was being pushed around with the Secret Service guys, because once you become president, after you're done, not only you get career salary, but you also get career bodyguards. Full-blown Secret Service. So they're pushing him around. And if you want to look up the NASA video, it's called ISS Crew Discusses Life in Space with Former President George Bush, or Former President Bush. So just go on the NASA site. Remember, it's ISS Crew Discusses Life in Space with Former President Bush. Now, what was interesting about that video was that the video was like, I don't know, 8 minutes long, and it was pretty boring. It was talking to the ISS crew and the guys up there and doing their anti-gravity stuff. But the first 10 seconds of it, Bush is being pushed through the middle of this thing, and on one of the screens behind, you saw the British astronaut. There's only one British astronaut in the history, supposedly been up there. The British astronaut in front of a blue screen it's not just a normal blue screen; it's a blue grid screen, and he's got a green screen ball that's spinning around his finger. I mean, rotating around his finger. And this thing's pretty big, and you see this, and you're thinking, what am I looking at here? And so people have been just dissecting this, but it does, it's amazing because a lot of the flat earthers are now looking, because we've been looking for smoking gun stuff for NASA all the time. It's like, what, even if this was being done deliberately, right? Why in the world are you doing this up there? It's obvious it's him, and it's obvious it's the astronaut, and he's supposedly up there. It's not like you're doing this on the ground, right? So why? Yeah. So but that's just one instance of people that are finding new things every day to go against science, which, by the way, and yeah, we got to break here in another minute, but I want to make this point, which is that science, one of the reasons science is not debating us, one of the reasons Neil and I have not gotten in a room together, other than he says he never debates people, but no university, things have been sent out to all universities at this point. University professors coming forward there's a lot of questions that they have problems with that are outside of their field of expertise, that don't involve math. You know what I mean? Because they're math heavy. Everybody knows that. But what do they do? If you're a real heavy math guy, what do you do when somebody comes at you and says, "Oh yeah, by the way, why was there only one picture of the Earth taken for 43 years? Full picture of the Earth." And what do you do? I mean, yeah, fine, you get a PhD and you specialize in math. Crap, we gotta go break. When we come back, Brian. Welcome back to Strange World. I'm your host, Mark Sargent. This is segment 3 of our 4-part segments. And with us, it is subject matter expert, United States Army Master Gunner Brian. Are you still with us, Brian?
Yes, I am.
Fantastic. Hey, let's talk about, because I completely forgot, you sent me a curvature chart, because initially the curvature chart that's been floating around, we got from mainstream science into the flat earth world, you initially had some discrepancies with.
Well, one thing I always had a problem with was, everybody's always saying it's 8 inches per
mile squared.
Squared.
Yeah.
Which made me think, well, where do you get, like I said, where do you get that? Okay. You're telling me, but where do you get that?
Yeah.
So after some research and all that, I worked it out of calculations with curvatures and angles and everything else on how to get that.
Yeah.
So
you basically baked your cookies from scratch in this case.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
Except for one problem.
Yeah.
Which is the funny one is the way you do the angles, you have to know the radius of your curve to get the radius. So
got it.
You have to know the radius of the Earth, which unfortunately we are told it. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Without getting the measurements of another object up top or something, you got to do the measurements. So I did that chart, and I put in the Sears Tower, 1729 feet. That's how tall it is. And doing my own math calculations, pulling all the information, all that. So it comes up that you should be able to see the tower, 130 feet of the tower, from the top to the down of the tower. Because I've seen that Chicago skyline or whatnot video for 12 hours.
Yeah, the time-lapse video.
Yeah. And that made me go, well, why is that? Got you. So that's one of those questions of why. So I want to do the math, see what you could actually see. Because one thing I've noticed when you do, and everyone always talks about the curvature drop.
Yeah.
Well, if you're on a ball, okay, you have to think when you look at the horizon, you're actually looking down. So, in a sense, what you should be doing is, instead of calculating just the drop, because you're going to see so far, picture yourself on the ball, but instead of being on the top, you've got to turn it so the horizon's in the center. So it's like an arched bridge. Think of it that way.
Okay.
You're standing on both sides of the arched bridge.
Yeah. Excellent example. Yeah.
So I ran, this sheet does the calculations assuming that. Yeah. So you can see so far to the horizon and the object and whatnot. And it does come out with the science's rule of 3,959 radius of the Earth, that you should only be able to see 130 feet of the tower.
Got it. So in the end, after you baked the cookies from scratch, you said, hey, you know what? The recipe was right. And so it is. It is what they say it is.
You shouldn't be able to see much.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. Mainstream science. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So the mainstream science says there should be a curvature, but there isn't. By the way, what was interesting about that video, and I don't think it should be shortchanged, which is why I use it now as a Strange World clip. I include it in there. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you see something that looks like a city across, that's Chicago, the timeline from 50 miles away. And it's time lapse, which shows there are the buildings there, and it goes through weather, clouds going by, darkness. Everything lights up. You can actually see, if you look close enough, I think you can see the janitors, the cleaning crews starting from the top, and moving down through the floors, and the lights, go off and on. And superior mirages don't do that. You don't have a mirage that stays perfectly still during all those things I was just mentioning. Plus, you shouldn't be able to see it at all. The curvature should be. In fact, my friend David Weiss, he was telling me today. He goes, "You got a reinforcement in the argument when people don't get it, and that is you're looking, like you were saying, you're looking over the side of a hill." So when a boat or a vehicle or whatever, now water is easier because people, if you say you're on the salt flats, they'll say, well, of course it's flat. It's like it's a flat place on a round ball. But if you're on the water, if the boat goes on the other side of the hill, it doesn't matter what telescope or telescopic lens you get, you should not be able to bring that boat back because it's on the other side of the hill.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if you're thinking, your buddy rides his bike on the other side of a short hill if you have a pair of binoculars, can you now see him? No, you can't because he's on the other side. There's a physical barrier between you and him, and that's the hill.
And that's part of the problem I think we have is, everybody goes, well, what the most common is it's a mirage.
Yeah.
Well, why is it a mirage? What's making this a mirage to last so long? What is...
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's all, science is math, right? So what's the math for them to say it's a mirage?
And I know some people have said that and believe me, I've seen some videos where it shows part of the hull, where people say, okay, now you get the arguments like, okay, maybe the hull is blurring into the mast, and you start getting into the vanishing point argument where and law of perspectives where things start getting blurry. But I've also seen videos where it looks, like there's water, like part of the ship is cut off. However, there's so much distance there, you still shouldn't be able to see any of the ships. And now some people are coming back and saying, okay, at the very least, even the doubters are coming back and saying the curvature formula is wrong. They're saying, okay, it's not 8 inches per mile. It's got to be like 3 inches per mile. And you're thinking, well, that's kind of maybe that's not a big deal, but that's a huge deal.
It would be.
That changes everything. It's like,
and that's one reason why I made that sheet I sent you was for the purpose of, well, how do you actually calculate the curvature?
Yeah.
And that doesn't do an 8 inches. Ironically, if on that sheet I told you, if you put the 8 inches of your height, it comes out to be 1 mile to the distance to the horizon.
Yeah, there you go.
So, but again, I had to prove it to myself, not just taking someone's word for it.
Yeah. My big, so then people are saying, okay, if it's 3 inches per mile, then then the planet's way, way bigger, right? And that they're hiding even more land. I'm just going, okay, there's a couple things wrong with that. One is if the planet is way, way bigger, then we're on a puddle, and there's this big ice barrier around us, but it's still this massive thing. Plus, I keep trying to throw at people like, look, you're not thinking big enough, which is or small enough in this case, a condensed version. That is, there doesn't have to be a planet. Not like you're thinking. Remember, you were told there were planets. You were told how far away the sun was and how far away the moon was, and everything about the solar system you were told. It wasn't something that you knew. Which again, the George Orwell argument, and that was even as late as the 40s, just before the NASA program came online. People knew the Earth was round, but they didn't know how. They just said, "Well, we read it in a book, in a science book." It's like, yeah, but how did they know? Nobody knew in 1946 about anything. So why didn't the argument change? Why didn't it, it's like, okay, then when, they lucked out because NASA shows up. And I love the Matt Boylan thing. It's like sooner or later, you've got to hand somebody the picture of this place, whether it's real or not, because there's, people really, really, really want to know.
Yeah, well, it's just like that last guy that told you how do you prove it to somebody on the ground. He couldn't. And like I said, even with the math, we still have to be told what the radius of the Earth is. I can't figure that out for myself.
Yeah. In fact, there was a neat one of the videos. I think it was by Vsauce, and he was like, now he's buried in so many. He was before the flat Earth thing, but he actually did a video. He's like a science guy, kind of like a poor man's Bill Nye. And he did his thing, is the Earth possibly flat? And he was talking about the sticks and shadows argument, and that is they prove through sticks and shadows. And he goes, unless, that works, unless the sun is only 3,000 miles away and only like 30 something miles across, then you get the same results. And of course, 99% of the people that watch that go, well, that second option's really, really stupid because we all know the sun is 93 million miles away. It's not 3,000 miles away. And it's like, yeah, but that's what the flat Earth argument is. It's like, so if it works both ways, how can you? Yeah. I'm going to keep stealing. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. The sun. That's an interesting one, but I don't know how to put that.
Let me ask you this. If your family, for example, you probably, anyone who's listening out there, are there any arguments that you hear on a regular, because you seem to say that you were like one of the last holdouts. Are there any other holdouts in your family which also have their questions that they're digging their heels into?
Yep, I do have one other holdout, and he's got the same problem I do with the stars spinning.
That's what I was going to mention. So the stars spinning. I've seen pictures of time-lapse pictures, not motion picture, but I actually have I've seen both still shots and motion pictures taken down at the very equator, whatever they call the line is down at the equator, where if you do time-lapse, you can see the stars spinning in two directions in the same frame. Right. And that is very, very interesting. It does not surprise me at all because, again, for me, it's a display issue. But would it even begin to kill flat Earth? No, but
it's one of those things that doesn't necessarily kill it, but it's one of the easy explanation is we're a ball spinning, but it's like half the other arguments with curvature and everything else is, well, someone needs to figure this out, and that's what we supposedly have all these scientists for and all that, is to do that.
Yeah. And my road, and you heard this probably if you've heard all the interviews, my road when I was doing this kind of ran into the same thing Brian did, which was, and I'm sure Brian Dunning now is looking at this differently, because his answer was, well, the only way a scientist is going to be able to prove it to anybody that's down on the ground is you got to give him $20 million and put him on a rocket. And I go, that's where I was, because I said this. All you have to do, you at that point, everything shifts towards, and I know the science guys hate hearing this because they say, no, well, the flat Earth has no proof. And I go, no. The burden of proof is not on flat Earth because we shouldn't even be on a level playing field. No play on words there. We should be completely outgunned. And yet, what happens is you have to, the burden of proof's on the science side, and on the science side, all the people that they're involved with the proof, they're in space, so they should have tons and tons and tons of boxes of the arguments. There should be tons of stuff up there. Fine, give me a box of it. I'll be happy to look through it and post it online and say, you know what, the flat Earth is dead. It's over. Everyone can go home now. But there's such an absence of things.
Well, one of the things, again, back to your hero, Neil.
Thank you. Great. It's not going to win.
So, doing some research, if the Earth is spinning and all that, well, supposedly the equator is, I believe it's about 24 kilometers wider due to this, quote, spinning of the Earth.
Oh, right.
But what I got confused on when that video with Neil was saying it's more pear-shaped, more heavier on the bottom.
He actually called it an oblate spheroid. He was real specific about that.
But what I didn't like is what he didn't explain is, well, why is it heavier on the bottom? I mean, if that's his reasoning, why?
Nice.
I could get the equator being wider because of the spinning.
But why say it's heavier on the bottom?
Why is the southern hemisphere?
Yeah, you didn't say why.
Yeah, and that's the problem we're having nowadays, I think, with science and teachers or whatever, anything else, is just like, well, this is the way it is. Why?
Yeah. You're right. Absolutely, nobody asked that. And my argument, I know he's backpedaling now. After the BOB thing came out and did all its damage, he went on a couple of radio stations and he said that actually the Earth is almost perfectly spherical. It's like a cue ball. It's so smooth, right? By perspective. And
24 kilometers at the equator. I mean, compared to the size of the Earth, that wouldn't be nothing visible.
Yeah, I got that too. But if you're gonna use that sort of math, then you're not going to use terms like, I mean, look it up. Anybody can look this up on Wiki, or just type in oblate spheroid and click on images. You're always going to see the same image, which is kind of like a compressed basketball. Why use that term if it's not even close to being an oblate spheroid? And the other term is it's pear-shaped, which means it's not even an oblate spheroid. Why use those terms? And I don't care if he comes back and says, oh, well, I didn't really mean it like that. What I meant was, you can say, from a science standpoint, it's an oblate spheroid. It's like, no, because the scientific definition, an oblate spheroid looks nothing like what we have been shown in pictures. I'm sorry, the very few pictures that we have. So the fact that he didn't put a disclaimer while he was talking, it's not like it was a half-assed conversation in the middle of nowhere. He was addressing students. It was an auditorium full of academics.
And that's the problem. I mean, it's like with NASA with the whole Orion with the Van Halen.
The Van Halen belts. Oh, come up with a meme for that. I want one of those. The Van Halen belts. David, but again, Roth style, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh yeah, always. Yeah. Again, they, he was talking about hard to get through there, but they keep leaving out the reasons why.
Yeah.
Which they used to do. Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, science would come on. Even Carl Sagan gave his reasons of why.
Yeah.
But now they're just like, this is the way it is.
You heard Stanton Friedman when I asked him, and I set him up for it, granted, because I knew that he specialized in radiation. I go, deadly or not deadly? And he goes, well, I don't think they're that dangerous. That's like, well, because we seem to think they're that dangerous. So, and again, no scientist will answer those basic questions. What shielding to this day? We're 40-something years, almost 50 years into, the anniversary. And to this day, nobody has said what shielding they used to get through the Van Allen radiation belts. What did they use? Why nobody, and when they came back, regardless of your shielding, that capsule is going to be contaminated. Because you're not shielding it on the outside. You're shielding, it's going to be an inner layer. Why wasn't the capsules contaminated? Did anything get through? Nobody died of radiation, whatever that comes with cancer. Nobody got through that. And then, of course, the damning thing, and I got to bring it up on this show like I do several shows, and that is the Orion trial by fire video, which is on the NASA website, where they can say, look, we're not going to send men through this area of space until we can figure out how to solve the radiation problems. It's that, I think they shot themselves in the foot. It's like so much time had passed that literally whoever was in charge of that production had forgotten what we had achieved.
I think the problem might be with NASA mostly, but with a lot of stuff is how many years have we gone without questioning anything they said?
Almost 50 now.
Right.
Yeah.
So now, and that's one reason why your videos and the intrigue that's bringing up on the internet with people and all that is nice, is because people are asking those questions like we used to. Why?
Yeah.
Explain it to me. I want to learn.
Yeah. Well, did you see, you probably saw the beginning of one of my things if you didn't listen live, where Neil was doing his show on, I think, the Discovery Channel, and he was talking to those two younger women physicists. And he was talking about the moon, and one of the women was like, yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, like the anniversary's coming up. Like, yeah, that's an event, right? But she couldn't relate to it because it had been 2 generations of people. And he was and she was kind of downplaying it. And he was like, oh, no, you can't downplay this. And she's going, look, then do it again. She goes, my goal, is to see somebody up there now. There's somebody walking around on the moon now. She goes, do it again. You go, because if you don't, then the rest is just bad footage.
Yeah. And it is bad footage, as we've seen.
It's horrible. It's so, and why NASA? I know that NASA released those 8,000 photos at the end of last year, and there were some of them were in HD. They cranked up the resolution on them, but that did not help their cause at all.
No.
You zoom in on those pictures. That's the big difference. I know they didn't know that this was going to come along. You take the pictures as best you can, put them in Life magazine, figure that you can pass them off for a long time. But then computers got better, and then monitors got better, and then the internet gets better, and people are passing notes around and comparing things. And all it takes is one guy in the middle of nowhere to look at a picture funny, and he goes, "Hey, if you turn this sideways, you can almost see the Scotch tape." And then it's like, hey, share this with people, and it gets all over the place. And
yeah,
the line is that everything sticks.
It does. Sorry, lost my thought there.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So if you had to pick, I know that you say you're a globalist, which is great and everything, but does as far as flat Earth moving forward, is there any other than the star constellations? Are there any other weak arguments that you coming from a globalist point of view would like to see kind of hammered out a little further?
For me, the stars, like I said, are the biggest one. So that is, even with your theory or perspective of projections and all that, you got to figure if two people are standing 200 miles apart, if one's come up, one's down, I don't know, it's just a hard one to go with.
It's so easy for me to say it because I see it in the games that I play. Literally, I go into the games just to have fun now. Games I don't even really play. I mean, I play Warcraft, but I don't do any quests or anything now. I just go in there and do a couple of ticky-tack things. But I'll just walk around some places and look at the sky now, and I'll see how they did it. I'll see how how things are changed by region and location, and I can see the change. I was going, the moon all of a sudden will change a tint. It'll change to a different cloud thing around it. And I realize from the limited programming that I've done, it's like, oh yeah, they changed the whole moon. But because it's in the exact same place, you think it's the same moon. It's just a different shade of moon.
Yeah, but the only problem I have on that is with games and all that is that's being projected strictly to one person.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, you get 20 people out in a field.
Yeah.
Spread them out, even between Australia, spread them across Australia, and as they watch these stars move, it's not projected to each person.
Well, no.
Then you got the matrix and all that.
But it is projected to region. I mean, meaning because the stuff we do now are all massive multiplayer, and you're right, they're not individuals,
right?
Because that's silly. Although you can do instances, which is a whole nother, another thing. But when if one guy's on one side of the map and I'm on the other side of the map, technically we are not seeing the same sky.
True. Now, but with
that's so tough to explain to people, though.
It is, and like I said, the problem I have is if I'm on, you got two people on each side of Australia, for example, in the south. As he sees stars, doing the curve, coming up and down. If it's projected, then the other guy is going to see those stars suddenly in the middle, not coming up because they're coming down.
Yeah. On
the one guy, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the point is it's something that needs to be researched and explained and figured out.
Yeah. I agree. We do not. I mean, the thing everybody's working right on right now is the map, because we know there's problems with it. We know that, but they're not. I don't think they're problems that can't be overcome. I mean, yeah, it looks like one of our guys, that guy out in England, Tiger Dan. He seemed to have lost his mind when he was trying to figure out the map. I don't know why. And other people are trying to alter it. We know kind of basically that it's the best thing we got going, the AE map currently. But other people are working on versions of the map, and I will not lose any sleep over it if all of a sudden a new version comes out and it is tweaked and it looks really, really different. Because regardless, I treat it really no differently than the dome versus no dome argument, which is, does it really matter? Because which is why I love the flat Earth movement, because it's this real. It's disorganized but organized, meaning there's all this enthusiasm. Everybody's running down the battlefield in all these different directions. and they don't even know exactly what the end goal is, and so they're all going after these different perspectives. But the common goal, which inadvertently the side effect which we're all working towards, is that the globe is not what we've been told, not like what it's been advertised to be. And
no, I'll agree with you on that. There's something
up there.
There's something not quite right.
Yeah, there's something you do not want us to see. And if people don't understand what I'm saying there, it's that there's so many things that we should have a whole bunch of video and pictures of, and we don't see anything. And I mean, every week, Max Malone, it's supposed to be driving him nuts because every week he seems to be finding new things. He's going, do you realize that we've got no footage of anybody entering or leaving the orbit? We've got no footage of, and here was the big one. I thought this was really interesting. We've got footage of anybody in an airlock opening the exterior door. How does that happen? I'll
give it to you on that one. I mean, you figured NASA would want to record every single thing that happens. So
because it's cool, right? I mean, you depressurize the room, you open up the airlock, everyone walks out, and it's just like the movies. So why isn't there any of that that's being done?
They'll release the video next week, probably.
I know that's the part. Okay, we got like a minute to the break, and before we come to our last section, but yeah, that's the part that really bugged me, and which is why anyone wants to debate me. Look, anything that's released in 2015 does not count. I'm sorry. You can't. When the Flat Earth movement comes out and says, hey, there are no pictures of the Earth from space, you can't come out in June and say, oh yeah, by the way, here's the first picture of space or the Earth from space in 43 years.
Yeah.
You can't do that. It's
well, I'll give them this. They can come out with it. I'm not going to disclude it just because it just came out. I mean, but most of the pictures, like I said, they're not pictures or imagery. Like that one with the moon passing in front of the Earth.
Oh my God!
I was like, that's not right.
That was 20 frames.
And the problem I have, like I said, if it is right, then explain to me why it's right.
Yeah, there you go. All right, hey, that's the music, and we're coming. Welcome back to Strange World. I'm your host, Mark Sargent, and that was Joe Jackson stepping out from his album Night and Day. That concludes our evening's programming. We started with Justin Bieber, 3-hour marathon, followed by Taylor Swift, Hour of Power. And now we're going to talk to Brian, the United States Army Master Gunner. How's that for an intro?
I don't know if I like my name with Justin Bieber's.
Yeah, I know. It's sad because I'm obviously a little too old for that whole thing. But the first time I heard him, I was in a room full of interns at the company that all these girls, and I was going, wow, she's got a great voice. And they'd look at me and they looked horrified because you could tell they were fans. It's like, oh, how dare you speak of him like that, Justin? It's like, whatever. We'll see.
Yeah.
Anyway, so where did we leave off? So we were talking about NASA and Neil, and how much I hate both of them. I don't hate Neil deGrasse Tyson. I've learned to like him less and less, though, because he's still taking that because he's the face of science. And with that comes so much responsibility, and he has got to be.
Well, like I said, the thing that disappoints me about him is he's gotten to the point where this is the way it is.
Yeah.
You're supposed to explain this stuff. This is why you went to college and why you're the head to talk about it, is to explain why, not just say that's the way it is, you're crazy.
Yeah. Science, they've got these things where it's like, oh, this is it, the given, from algebra. It's a given. It is obviously it's true. I was going, no, it's not. You guys have been wrong. Again, I'm not going to go off on my big rant until I actually have them in the room. But you guys have been wrong about a lot of stuff over the years. You learn as you go. You take your best guess, and when you're wrong, you admit it. The sad thing with science is when they're wrong, they don't usually put up an apology notice. It's like, oh, well, you know how it goes. You see the news story. It's like, well, it turns out, or actually, that's how a nerd statement always begins. Actually, turns out the sun was generating a completely different kind of radiation, and it was only 30 miles across.
Well, actually, see, I used it.
But
no. Yeah. It's not science, I don't think. I mean, I've been seen a lot of scientists, a lot of documentaries, and the key thing I always listen when they're talking is if they say, well, my theory is, instead of saying fact. I mean, explain what they're doing. It's a theory. Okay, it's a great theory. Run with it. Yeah. Flat Earth is a theory right now. Actually, they've turned globe Earth into a theory too, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. That's the big one.
That's good. I mean, we want theories. We want people to work it out and figure it out and get the facts, not just accept something. Here's a good one for you. I'm going to go back to satellites for a second.
Sure.
Because I know you're against satellites.
I told you they were satellites?
But,
yeah, I know. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
I'm having trouble on my end. 1 second.
What happened? Brian doesn't actually know that we've been causing the problems on his machine. Brian, can you hear me? He can't hear me. While he's working on his microphone, let's talk about who else has been in here, because Brian, the United States Army Master Gunner, is part of
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me? Wait, hang on. I'm going to type to him. 1 second. I can hear you. But
okay, I can't hear you for some reason. It's coming muffled. Real quick, I'll say this.
Talk about
satellites for you. Satellites don't just prove flat Earth or globe. To go on your side, I mean, if your thing with the quarter and the salad bowl could be a space within there that satellites could float around. But there's something up there, I will say that.
Yeah.
Like I said, with the GPSs and in the military, we know we transmit out of antenna ranges and all that.
Yeah.
So I will give you this bone is something's up there. We need to figure out what it is. I think it's the satellites. Could be something else. Gotcha. But work it out, for all the theories.
Yeah. Yeah, agree. And while he still probably can't hear me.
I can now.
Oh, can you? Okay, maybe it was just a connection issue. No worries. But yeah, with the satellites, what I've tried to tell people is I remember it's easier for me to say it, and while Brian's call is down, Brian has lost connection. That's because the DoD is probably pinging him right now like he did Sean McCrary. We'll try to get Brian back. Sorry, guys. Brian.
Am I back?
Yeah, you are. You were fading out there. I wonder if it's on my side or if it's on your side, because honestly, I'm lucky to be talking to you right now because there was a windstorm that ripped through here recently, and we lost power earlier in the day. So.
Well, I seem to have you at the moment. So, but no, my whole thing is on all the theories, figure them out why. Let's have the decent discussion without saying, nope, they don't exist, or this doesn't happen. On the airplanes, so anything with the airplanes, when you're talking about the old World War II pilots, they used to use altimeters, which use barometric pressure, basically, the pressure of the atmosphere. So as you go around the curve, it would, as it got less, it would think you're going up, so then you would tilt down.
Sure.
Very slightly. Nowadays, modern airplanes is automatic pilot doing it.
Yeah.
What would be nice experiment is, like we talked about before, is someone hold a gyroscope up there, fly from the north hemisphere to the south hemisphere.
Yeah.
If it turns upside down, then there's a curve. If it doesn't, it's flat.
Yeah, there you go. And we've had there's apps now. There's an app for just about everything, and there's been apps out there that determine the levelness, and the people that have flown some. I haven't seen north to south yet, but I have seen east to west, and they said that at the very least, the planes get up to they fly up to cruising altitude and they level off, and they say it's perfectly level. The plane, as you know, if you're going over the hill, it should either nose down or nose up a little bit, depending.
Well, the problem with the apps is that's probably working off gravity. I mean, I haven't seen a phone with a gyroscope.
I know. Exactly. It's like, okay, what's the app trying to simulate? So is that perfect by any stretch? No, it isn't. Yeah. But there's so many arguments now on the flat side, which is why I went on my little 3-4 minute rant on one of my videos where I said, look, it's not necessarily about proving the flat Earth as much as I treat it like a court case, which is, the flat Earth doesn't necessarily have to make its case that strong, because we put so much reasonable doubt in the globe that the globe is just backpedaling. They don't know what to do, because there is like, okay, I've got this to fall back on. No, you don't. We're just pulling legs out from underneath the furniture, just ripping things out, and they don't have. By the time you're done, it's like, okay, what exactly is it that you're looking at? Because the whole globe thing, yeah, that's not gonna. Even the satellites thing. I used to be a big believer in satellites, and then I take night vision binoculars out just because some guys. It had nothing to do with flat Earth. This was 6 years ago, and he goes,
"Yeah, night vision's fun, isn't it?"
Oh, night vision's amazing. People should get night vision. Night vision is fantastic. Night vision binoculars is just freaky. Even though it's just Gen 1, military stuff can get up to like Gen 3 and higher. But Gen 1 night vision binoculars, which is perfect for looking at the stars, whatever they are, you don't even think you're looking at the same sky, because you see way more stars than you would normally. And then you see what you think are satellites. They're flying around, and then the first time you see several fly in formation and break off and do things, and you're going, what am I looking at? And at that point, and I questioned this. I was going, okay. And I went out for years, and during the summers and winters, I'd go out in the snow and look at these things, and I'd keep, I just had more and more questions.
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, if you ever get a chance to get out in the middle of the desert and look up at the sky with good night vision, it's really neat.
Fun too. Yeah. If you can get away from the city, people don't understand that the city lights remove so many of the stars that if you can, like even here where I am, Seattle's 30 something miles away as the crow flies, and you could still see, the Seattle lights, how it kind of glows the sky. But if you get into a dark part, you can see the Milky Way. The actual full-blown Milky Way. And I know if you're out in a rural anywhere, you can probably see that. But it's amazing go out and look at the star, look up sometime and watch how things move, and tell me you're alone in an empty universe. And by the way, I'm sorry, we haven't touched on any of your religious preferences. You got any?
Yeah, I'm Christian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm Christian.
Did you have any talk? I mean, did you follow Rob Skiba or Controversy 7 or Celebrate Truth or any of those guys while you were kind of doing this?
Well, yeah, I've watched, got lots of YouTube time, especially with deployed, but the religion thing.
Does it factor in at all, or is you trying to stay as?
It does, and I'm not going to go strongly into my religious beliefs.
You don't have to.
No, it's just I have certain. Well, I just like everything else, I question certain things. And
all right.
Here's a funny thing on religion. I'll give you this. So.
Okay.
So like evolution, right? The funny thing I realized in Genesis with the whole 7-day, is it is the exact sequence of the evolutionary process, minus the timeline, but from fermentation of the seeds to plants to animals. It's the same line that quote evolution has.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good considering what Moses lived how long ago?
Exactly. Yeah. There's so many, which is also, I've tried to stay as neutral as possible, just only because I was raised born again Christian, but only because I think this message shouldn't exclude anybody. Which is why I've been, saying, look, you can work it out for yourselves. I'm not saying that we determine that the world is round or flat, and then there should be a giant holy war between the 5 major religions. But everyone's got to decide for themselves. But there's a lot of biblical references which you can't ignore, and I love the fact that Christianity is like looking more into the Book of Enoch, even though Enoch used to be considered way out there. And now they're all coming back to it. It's like, and Enoch, that's the book that talks about this stuff. And it's like, and they were lucky, because had that been canonized, had that actually been put into the Bible, I think we'd be, this thing would have escalated quicker.
And that's the whole thing, don't get me wrong, the Bible's a very good book.
No, it's a bestseller.
Yeah, it is. Been around for a long time.
Yeah.
But, it's one of those things where I don't think you should disclude anything.
Yeah.
Any historical documents or anybody's beliefs or theories. You should listen to all theories.
Yeah.
Someone comes up with a theory that's not right, and you say, well, no, it's not right because and give the reasons, but not just to say, well, like you get all the time, the world's flat. Why would you believe that?
Yeah.
Yes, you've given reasons why, and now we're waiting for the responses back.
Yeah.
Like I said, my response is Southern Hemisphere stars and Northern Hemisphere stars.
Sure.
But all the other points are still valid that you have.
Which is why, because people, when they're trying to figure out, especially newcomers, it's like, why is this thing resonating? Why is this thing spreading like it is? I'm just going, because you can't stomp it out. It's like a weird forest fire where you think you get a handle on it, and then all of a sudden a gust of wind comes along and you're flanked. You think it's like, fine. You think you can take it, you use gravity for something? Fine. Here's some of the NASA stuff. You think you can take out the Van Allen radiation belts? Fine. Here's some curvature equations. There's so many different aspects that you can't hit enough of them to satisfy anybody.
No. But like I said, we knock them out one at a time. It's kind of like, it's funny, it is growing, because I sent you that video clip of the local news that was having, I guess, an anti-flat Earth thing, but they were having scientists come out to explain why the Earth wasn't flat.
Yeah.
It was on a Channel 11 News. I think it was somewhere in Minnesota or something. I can't remember now.
Yeah.
But it's coming out, and like I said, and that's a good thing, because like I said, they're going, well, this is what? Well, explain it why.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, they're still using because so-and-so said so, Newton or whoever said so. Well, that doesn't tell me why. That just means one man said it.
Yeah. The scientific problem they are going to have when and if this thing ever gets any further, where I actually sit down and try to, because you can't just snuff this thing out with a debate. It's too late. There's too many people doing too many things. But the problem they're going to run into, and I'll give them a heads up on this now. I'll give you advance warning on what you're going to run into, science, is that you are going to try to use your strong suits to beat this thing, and it's going to be the wrong weapon. And that is because, remember, I said everyone was looking for the magic bullet, the silver bullet to bring this thing down. If flat Earth was a big giant werewolf rumbling through the countryside, and their silver bullet is math. And hey, it's great. That's fantastic. You're a PhD in astrophysics. You like your math. However, the average person on the street, the average person that's walking around, me included, we don't have master's degrees or PhDs. In fact, most of the population doesn't have master's degrees or PhDs in anything even remotely close to astronomy. So when you start spouting off stuff, kind of like when Neil deGrasse Tyson went on that television show, and he was talking about when you go open the horizon, and he was using terms, and I'm watching this thing, I was going, he's losing them, and he didn't have to lose them like that. But that's what his strong suit is. That's what he went with. And if they try that, it's gonna fall on deaf ears.
Yeah, and I disagree with you on people not knowing math. Math's not hard to do. It isn't.
But you had some training though in math.
No, I didn't. Not really. Well, a little bit, but it's not hard to Google. But here's the problem with the math that they give. And just said, even with my sheet, it depends on a given. In this case, they say the radius of the Earth is this.
Yeah.
If it's that, then these are the calculations. My question is how did they determine the radius of the Earth? And if they do the damn shadow stick thing, I would smack them. But
yeah,
it's those reasons. What Neil should do, I think, is to go on TV with a series of shows like he was doing Cosmos, right?
Yeah.
And I was a big Carl Sagan fan, so I was excited about that. I won't lie.
That's right.
And he doesn't have to disprove flat Earth, but what he could do is go on a show, this is our Earth, and then start explaining all these things about the Earth.
Yeah.
But yeah. That's, again, open the debate, a civil debate, not a drunk in the bar debate.
I agree. I can't see. There's too many questions. From science's point of view, which is why they're running scared. And actually, my friend who I asked first on this, who's got her PhD, because I asked her, I go, why won't anybody talk about this? And she goes, here's why, right? And she laid out her email footer, which had all her numbers and her letters next to her name and all her titles and all this crap. And she goes, do you know how long it takes and how much effort it takes to get a PhD? She goes, there's a lot of education involved. And you got to remember, the ultimate goal for anybody that does their thesis and gets their PhD is they want to get published. and they want to do something that doesn't their career is the most important thing to them, and they won't do anything to jeopardize that. She goes, can you imagine if a scientist went up against a flat earther and lost the debate, by public opinion, and lost the debate, or even entertain the idea? It's not even that they get up and lose, but they would be looked down upon from their community, because it's all about the community. Everybody, in the PhD world, that would and say, why would you even entertain talking to these people? With the threat of, the old Hollywood saying, and that is, you'll never work in this town again. It's be the same thing for PhD. You will never get published again. If you do this, if you even talk to these guys, you're never going to be published again. It's the fear of rocking the boat. They might as well at that point go, which is why no astronomer, because people have said, it just drives me insane when they say, so why are there no flat earthers that are scientists, that are full blown scientists? Are you kidding? It's academic, it's career suicide. You can't all of a sudden, if you're an astrophysicist, you can't come out and say, oh, by the way, I think there's something wrong with the whole globe model. If you do, what would be the reason? Even if you won the lottery, you wouldn't do that, because it's all about your reputation. You would go down as this joke in the community.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I've talked to a couple of people about it, and the reaction. Yeah, that's stupid.
That's stupid. There was a guy, the thing you probably saw if you've been watching the videos, a big YouTube channel, like 9 million subscribers for one. They had like a backup channel. It's got 3 million, a huge, mainstream type of thing. And the one shorter guy with the glasses, he said, yeah, I didn't even look. I didn't even look at the flat Earth stuff. I'm not even going to entertain it.
It's like that first scientist or whatever he was that you debated when you didn't realize he was actually going to talk about flat Earth.
Yeah. Or Stanton Friedman, when I talked to him, and I knew he was going to do it. Bless him. I know he's 80 years old, but I knew he was going to do this. And that was after about the first 3 or 4 minutes, it was starting to click in his head, and he's going, wait. This is a thing. We're not talking metaphorically. This is real. What we're talking about, and it blows scientists completely away, because it is so far gone. It's so apparently in their minds it was put to bed literally 5 centuries ago. So why would you ever talk about it? But my argument, again, in the beginning of the clues, and you know what I'm going to say, which is, if it was put to bed 5 centuries ago, then why didn't you take the picture until 50 years ago?
Yep.
Why? What took you so long? I mean, you could not. Again, I know that Neil deGrasse Tyson says, well, seeing isn't the ultimate proof. It's still the math. I'm going, bull crap.
I'd agree with him on that, but they haven't shown me the math, except for if they say, how did they get the radius?
Well, there you go. Yeah. If the radius, if the diameter is 8,000 miles and the radius is roughly 4,000 miles, where did that come from? Without seeing it for you, there's so many different avenues, but the one that gets me is there's certain things that just scream procrastination. And one of them was, if the first rockets were sent up, and I'm not even counting the German footage from the 1940s, because the Germans were way out in front. But the first rocket shot, Sputnik was 1957, NASA was 1958. If you're doing rocket stuff in 57 and 58, why did you literally wait until 1972? 1972. That you're bypassing the entire 60s and the first part of the 70s before you take a picture of the Earth from space. How does that happen? It doesn't. And literally you wait, and people think, oh, it's not a big deal. I'm going, no. That's Apollo 8. 8, 9 doesn't count, supposedly, because apparently it never left orbit, if you believe it. 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, none of those took pictures. Round trip to the Earth and back. 17, which absolutely for a fact was going to be the last mission in advance, and you wait until the trip home, then you take a shot. And just one.
Yeah, I will give you that, like I said, something's wrong.
Yeah.
They're hiding, or they're not fully explaining or something.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. Something's wrong. But, I just don't understand why they're not explaining more.
Yeah.
Like I said, I am still think it's a globe. But I have to admit, where the numbers coming from and all that. Like I said, the only thing that's got me really for sure is because I see the stars.
I got you.
Spinning.
No, that's fine. And
please, if a flat earther out there can explain how the Earth is flat and those stars spin like that.
Yeah, send me an email if you think you've got a convincing argument for the stars that isn't mine. Send it to me, and I'll shoot it off to Brian. And that way, maybe he can be satisfied and become a full flat earther. But even if you don't, again, it's the argument. It's not that, because whatever the ultimate map layout, whatever the ultimate shape is, the one thing that we have been, what I love the community on, is that there's something very, very wrong with what we've been told. And yeah, you're right. Nobody's coming out to explain anything. Neil deGrasse Tyson dropping the mic, what does that do? Exactly. It's like, really?
I have no idea.
The world's most public scientist. Let's face it, most public scientist. If you say science, doesn't matter what field it is, you're always going to say Neil deGrasse Tyson. Yeah. In fact, there isn't even a second place for him. I mean, second place may be Bill Nye, maybe, but I don't even know. I don't think.
No, the one in New York City. Yeah, Miko.
Yeah, you're right. He may be second place. I don't know what his PhD's in though. Is it? I
think it's physics.
Is it physics? Yeah. Okay. He
talks a lot about quantum, and
he could be second. But he's not. He's not a close second, in my opinion. But the fact that you've got the world's most public scientist doing a rap battle with a Grammy-nominated rapper on television, it doesn't follow your usual protocol.
No, it doesn't. Like I said, I wish he would have come on and said, "Well, this is why."
or not to give it away, but look, you got to dumb it down for your audience. I know the audience was cheering for you, but that's just because the crowd coaches were there, with their thumbs up or thumbs down. You didn't see that happen because these guys didn't know the concepts he was talking about or even why he was talking about it. He just shows up, and most people didn't get it, but the exposure was invaluable to us. It was, everybody covered it. It was the most interesting story of 2016 so far.
Well, anything that comes out that makes people, in my opinion, question to find an answer to the truth, then it's good.
Yeah. Well, we got about a minute left here. We'll just go to the music it goes. But real quick, thank you, by the way, Brian, United States Army Master Gunner, for doing the show. Hang on, when we go to music, just hang on because the show will disconnect and we'll talk briefly after you're done. Before, because I know that you're trying to remain somewhat anonymous. Before you go, though, was there any other, because people they're listening to the testimony shows, any of the other guys that really stuck out as far as the any other testimonies, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, industrial people, anybody that you would recommend?
I will say I will not say any of them were wrong that's been on your show. No one said anything wrong that I know of.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's for everyone to interpret, and as far as why it works the way it does. Like I said, I'm a firm believer in satellites, or real quick, that video I saw of the Disney thing with the silver ball across the communications.
Oh, crap. We got to go.
Yep.
And thanks so much for staying with me. Everybody else.